Ladies and gentlemen, gather around, because today we're going to dive deep into something they never saw coming, something so profoundly chilling that it would silence even the boldest of voices. They thought they could use disrespect as a weapon, a twisted tool to undermine you, to chip away at your spirit, to keep testing your patience and resolve. They thought your kindness was weakness, your patience was naivety, and your silence was submission. They thought they held all the power, that they could control how far they pushed you, but they were wrong. They had no idea that in trying to break you, they were only fueling a quiet strength within you, something more potent than they could ever imagine. Let me tell you something about silence. Silence is not empty. Silence is not weak. They misunderstood it, didn't they? Silence is a decision, a boundary, a reservoir of all the words you could have said, but chose to hold back. Every time you bit your tongue, every time you held back your pain, every time you turned the other cheek, they thought they were winning. But little did they know, your silence was building, gathering, waiting. They couldn't see it, couldn't sense the storm gathering beneath your calm. They were so absorbed in themselves, so consumed by their own arrogance, that they didn't see the fire simmering beneath your exterior. They were oblivious to the fact that each time they disrespected you, they were taking one step closer to losing you. And now, here they are, left alone in a void of their own making. Imagine this. Day after day, they assumed you would stay. They counted on your presence. They depended on your loyalty. They took your support as their right. They believed that no matter how they treated you, you would continue to be there, silently taking it, absorbing the hurt, the neglect, the disrespect. But every soul has its limit. Every heart reaches a point where it has had enough. And when you reach that point, when you realize that enough was enough, you chose silence, a silence so complete, so powerful, that it left them in shock. They'll never know what truly happened, will they? They'll never understand the quiet transformation that took place within you. While they were busy taking you for granted, you were busy building boundaries. While they dismissed your kindness, your silence, you were slowly reclaiming your strength, taking back every piece of yourself they tried to diminish. Silence, my friends, is far from empty. It is full of the things left unsaid, the boundaries crossed, the respect never given. It is a wall, a boundary, an unbreakable fortress, and when you choose it for good, it becomes a constant reminder to them of everything they disregarded. Imagine them now, sitting alone, perhaps wondering where you went wrong, or if they'll ever see you again. Imagine them feeling that emptiness, the silence you've left behind. They never expected it. They never anticipated the void that would fill the space where you once stood. That silence, it's louder than any confrontation, stronger than any argument. It's the echo of every kind word they ignored, every gentle gesture they dismissed, every piece of you they took for granted. Now, they have to live with the emptiness of all they threw away. Scenarios of disrespect and realization. Think back to all the times they disrespected you. Picture the moments that slowly added up, like raindrops falling into a bucket. Each drop, a slight, an insult, an act of belittlement. Perhaps they spoke to you as if you were invisible, as if your feelings didn't matter. Maybe they rolled their eyes at your dreams, laughed off your pain, treated your kindness as though it was something to be mocked. Every instance was a drop in that bucket, each one filling it just a bit more. And they kept pushing, kept taking from you, thinking they could get away with it, that the bucket would never overflow. But one day it did. You reached your limit, the point where you realized that you couldn't stay silent any longer, not for their sake, but instead of lashing out, instead of letting them know how deeply they'd hurt you, You chose something stronger, something more powerful. Silence. A silence that would resonate, that would haunt them in ways words never could. Picture them now, left to sit in that silence, to reflect on every single moment they took for granted. Imagine them feeling the void that you once filled, the emptiness of every conversation, every space you used to brighten. They thought they could keep taking from you, but now they see they were only building the silence that would ultimately be their undoing. They thought they could escape accountability, that by ignoring your feelings, they could avoid the consequences of their actions. But silence doesn't let them escape. It follows them, a persistent reminder, a quiet accusation that never fades. They are haunted by the things they tried to ignore, the truths they tried to bury, the choices they made in their arrogance. And now, they have no one to face but themselves. In those quiet moments, when they're alone with their thoughts, they start to realize what they've lost. They feel the weight of every moment they dismissed you, every time they took you for granted, every word they threw carelessly in your direction. They start to understand that the silence isn't just emptiness, it's a reflection of everything they failed to see, everything they failed to appreciate. Silence can be like a heavy fog, thick and impenetrable, surrounding them, making it impossible to see a way out. They feel trapped, unable to escape the silence that has become their prison. They might try to distract themselves, to fill the void with other people, other things, but nothing satisfies that emptiness. Nothing can replace what they lost. And in that silence, they begin to understand the true cost of their actions. They may reach out, try to break through the silence, try to make amends, but it's too late. Your silence is not an invitation for reconciliation. It's a boundary, a final decision. You've moved on, chosen to protect yourself, to preserve your peace. They're left on the outside, looking in, unable to reach you, unable to undo the damage they've done. There's a kind of poetic justice in silence, isn't there? They wanted power over you, wanted to control how you felt, how you responded. But in the end, they're the ones left powerless, unable to escape the silence that now surrounds them. Your silence has become their consequence, their punishment, their reminder of everything they lost, and there's nothing they can do to change it. They thought silence was nothing, that it was weak, passive, but now they see it for what it truly is, a force more powerful than they could have ever imagined. Silence has become their reckoning, their reality, their constant reminder of the price they paid for their arrogance, their disrespect, their ignorance. So let them sit in that silence. Let them feel its weight. Let them carry it with them every single day. They thought they could get away with their actions, thought they could avoid the consequences. But silence doesn't let them off the hook. It holds them accountable in ways they never anticipated, forces them to face the truth they tried to escape. And while they're lost in that silence, you have found freedom. You've let go of their power over you, reclaimed your peace, your dignity, your self-worth. You don't need to break the silence because it speaks for itself. It speaks of your strength, your resilience, your ability to rise above. It's a testament to everything they took for granted, a reminder of everything they lost. And in that silence, you have found your own voice, your own power, your own path forward. So let the silence remain. Let it be their mirror, their reminder, their consequence, and let it be your strength, your boundary, your freedom. Because in the end, silence isn't weakness. Silence is power. Silence is freedom. Silence is the strength to walk away, to reclaim your worth, to rise above. And in that silence, may they finally understand the true cost of their actions. The silence you've chosen is not a void, not an empty space, but rather a profound declaration, a statement of self-respect, an affirmation of your worth. You see, people often misunderstand silence. They mistake it for compliance, for submission, for cowardice. But silence is none of those things. Silence is a weapon of restraint. It's the choice to withhold yourself from a situation or person that doesn't deserve your energy. It's not about saying nothing because you have nothing to say. It's about saying nothing because you know, in that silence, you speak volumes. You let them stew in the space you've left behind, and that, my friend, is a message far stronger than any words could communicate. In a world full of noise, silence stands as the loudest statement of all. When the world demands explanations, justification, responses, your silence becomes an act of defiance. It's saying, I will not be diminished. I will not be molded to fit your narrative. I will not give you the power to define me. It's a boundary, one that is drawn with the strength of your soul. And when someone crosses it, there is nothing left for them but the space you've created between you. Silence serves as a powerful reminder that your worth does not depend on their approval, and you owe no one an explanation for choosing peace over chaos. What they didn't realize is that silence isn't weakness. Silence is restraint. They may have thought that the absence of a response from you was submission, a sign that you had nothing to say or no courage to say it. But they were wrong. Silence is the ultimate display of self-control. It is the holding back of a storm that could have unleashed chaos and destruction upon them. In reality, your silence was never an absence of strength, but the pinnacle of it. Silence was your choice to rise above, to contain what they could never handle, to let them think they were winning while you held the real power. Imagine standing in front of a storm that could unleash its wrath, tear apart everything in its path, devastate anyone who dared to challenge it. But instead of unleashing that storm, you held it back. It takes immeasurable strength to contain that force, to hold it within, to keep it restrained. They have no idea of the power it took, no idea of the sacrifice it demanded. You knew that releasing it would have hurt them, but it would have also hurt you. So, you let them carry on in ignorance, thinking they were strong, that they had conquered you, while in truth, your restraint was the real conquest. You see, psychologically, silence is one of the most difficult things for people to handle. In conversations, in arguments, in any situation, words fill the space between us. We use them to shield ourselves, to redirect blame, to justify our actions. Words create a wall, a cushion, a way of controlling how others see us. But silence removes all of that. It's like standing naked in front of a mirror, with no distractions, no excuses, no defenses. It forces them to confront their own actions, to look into the reflection of their choices, to see the ugliness they tried to ignore. Silence is a mirror, reflecting back the truth that they don't want to face. In that silence, they're left alone with their own thoughts, their own conscience, their own failures. They can't hide from it. They can't escape it. Every time they try to push it aside, it comes back, louder, more persistent. It becomes a haunting echo, a reminder of the things they did, the things they said, the moments they disrespected you, dismissed you, took you for granted. That silence becomes a ghost, a shadow that follows them everywhere. No matter where they go, no matter how much they try to ignore it, it's there, unavoidable, inescapable. Silence doesn't just leave them alone with themselves. It forces them to hear themselves in ways they've never had to before. Without your words to fill the gap, they're left to listen to their own. They replay the conversations in their minds, the things they said, the way they acted. And in the stillness, they begin to realize the weight of those words, the impact of their actions. It's in those moments, when there's no one else to blame, that they start to feel the truth they tried so hard to avoid. Silence becomes their reckoning, their punishment, a reminder of everything they tried to bury. In the quiet, they feel the emptiness of your absence, the hollow space where your laughter, your kindness, your presence once filled. They thought they could live without it, that your absence would mean nothing. But silence has a way of magnifying loss, of making absence feel like a presence in itself. They can't escape the emptiness that surrounds them, the feeling that something vital is missing, something they didn't appreciate until it was gone. Silence is not just the absence of words. It's the space between breaths, the pause that hangs in the air, the tension that never goes away. It's the reminder of all the things left unsaid, all the boundaries crossed, all the respect never given. Silence becomes a wall, an unbreakable fortress. And now, they're on the other side of that wall, unable to break through, unable to bridge the gap that they themselves created. They thought they could control you with disrespect, with manipulation, with the assumption that you would always come back, that you would always be there to fill the silence. But you chose differently. You chose to withhold, to let them sit in the emptiness they created. And in doing so, you showed them a strength they could never understand. Silence became your armor, your sanctuary, a place where you found your power, your dignity, your self-worth. In psychological terms, silence can be more powerful than any confrontation, more unsettling than any argument. Silence forces a person to look within, to see themselves in the rawest form. When you're silent, you remove the comfort of dialogue, the back and forth that allows people to justify their actions. You strip away their defenses, leave them vulnerable to their own thoughts, their own conscience. And for many, that's a fate more terrifying than any words could ever be. Imagine for a moment that you are the ocean, vast and deep, silent and unyielding. When others try to throw their stones at you, whether in the form of insults, disrespect, or manipulation, those stones fall into your vastness and disappear. They have no lasting impact. They sink beneath the surface without causing ripples. In the same way, your silence absorbs all the toxicity they send your way, allowing it to dissolve harmlessly, while you remain untouched, unshaken, and steady. This is your strength, the ability to withstand their attempts to pull you into their chaos without ever lowering yourself to their level. It takes immense inner strength to not react, to not give in to the temptation to lash out, to not let their words or actions define how you feel about yourself. And every time you choose silence, you reinforce that strength. Every time you let their words fall on deaf ears, you remind yourself and them of your power. It's in that silence that you reclaim your dignity, your peace, and your autonomy. Silence also serves as a boundary. In a world where everyone expects something from you, your time, your energy, your emotions, it's easy to lose yourself in the demands of others. But silence is a refusal to be consumed. It is a way of saying, I will not give myself to people or situations that do not honor me. Silence is the mark of someone who understands that their worth is not for sale, that their energy cannot be drained without consequence. And when someone tries to push past that boundary, to manipulate or control you, your silence stands firm as a reminder that they cannot take what they have not earned. Boundaries are not just walls we put up. They are the frameworks that allow us to protect our most precious resources, our time, our energy, our emotional well-being. Without boundaries, we become vulnerable to others' whims, pulled in different directions, constantly at the mercy of those who do not consider our feelings. But when we choose silence, we choose to protect what is ours. We choose to guard our peace with the ferocity of someone who understands their value, No one has the right to cross those boundaries without facing the consequences of their actions. And silence is the consequence they now face, a consequence that says, I will not be moved. Now, let's talk about freedom. Silence is freedom. In a world where so many people are trapped in a cycle of needing to explain themselves, needing validation, needing to prove their worth, silence is a form of liberation. It is the freedom to be who you are without needing anyone's approval, without the need to seek validation from those who have never respected you in the first place. To be silent in the face of disrespect is to free yourself from the shackles of needing to meet someone else's expectations. It is to say, I do not need your approval to be whole. I do not need your recognition to know my value. Freedom, in this sense, comes not from escaping a physical place, but from escaping the emotional chains that have bound you to people who never saw your worth. By remaining silent, you let go of the need to prove your value to them. You stop seeking their acknowledgement, their validation, their understanding. In doing so, you reclaim control over your own life, your own heart, your own future. They no longer have the power to dictate your emotional state, to trigger reactions in you, to make you feel small. Your silence becomes the key to unlocking a new chapter of self-love, of inner peace, of liberation from the toxic ties that once held you captive. And as you sit in that silence, you begin to realize something extraordinary. It is in this stillness that you find your true self. It is in this quiet that you reconnect with the essence of who you are, your values, your beliefs, your passions. In the noise of the world, it's easy to lose sight of who you really are. But in silence, there is clarity. There is a moment to breathe, to reflect, to reassess. You find the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, and the freedom to embrace what you truly deserve. The silence you've created is not an absence of you. It is the presence of your boundaries, your strength, your power. And though they may not understand it now, they will eventually feel the weight of it. The silence will linger in their lives long after you've gone. It will remain as a reminder of their mistakes, of the times they took you for granted, of the moments they dismissed your worth. They will feel the echo of your absence, the void that your silence has left behind, and in that echo, they will come to understand something far more profound than any confrontation could have taught them. They will understand the true cost of their actions. The cost is not just losing you, it's losing themselves. By disrespecting you, they disrespected themselves. By pushing you away, they pushed away a part of their own humanity, their own capacity for empathy, for growth. And now, as they sit with the consequences of their actions, they will realize that they've lost more than they bargained for. They thought they could walk away unscathed, but in the silence you've chosen, they will realize that it is they who have paid the ultimate price. So, let the silence remain. Let it be the final word, the final decision, the final truth. It is not your silence that is deafening. It is the realization that comes with it. It is the truth that silence speaks, a truth that cannot be ignored or drowned out by noise. Let it echo through their minds, through their hearts, until they can no longer avoid it. Let it become their reckoning, their moment of self-reflection. And when they finally come to terms with the cost of their actions, they will understand what you already know. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of something far more powerful. It is the presence of your strength, your boundaries, your freedom, and your worth. And in that silence, may they finally understand that they have lost everything that truly mattered. In conclusion, silence is far more than just the absence of sound. It is a powerful force, a statement of strength, a shield, and a reflection of your true worth. It is the space where you reclaim your peace, your boundaries, and your freedom. By choosing silence, you are not submitting or fading away. You are standing firm in your value, in your decision to not engage with those who fail to recognize your worth. It is a boundary they cannot cross, a message they cannot ignore. While they may never understand the depth of the silence you have created, the consequences will echo in their lives long after they've failed to recognize it. In the end, silence becomes a mirror, a reflection of their actions, their choices, and the realization that they have lost more than they could ever comprehend. So let it remain. Let silence be your strength, your peace, and your final word.